He left me for a better woman on vacation, then called me from a hospital, begging for help. The irony didn't arrive gently. It rang through my phone at 2:17 a.m., his name glowing against the dark like a ghost that refused to stay buried. I let it ring twice, 3 times, long enough to feel the weight of the past pressing against my chest before I answered. Behind his voice, I could hear machines, steady beeps, the distant shuffle of urgency. He sounded smaller than I remembered, fragile. "I didn't know who else to call," he said, breath catching between words. The same man who had once told me I wasn't enough now spoke like I was his only option. 3 weeks earlier, I had watched him walk through the airport with her, laughing, careless, her hand resting where mine used to be. He didn't look back, but now, in the sterile echo of a hospital room miles away, he finally did. And this time, I was the one who decided what happened next. I was the kind of person people relied on quietly, the one who remembered deadlines, paid bills on time, noticed when something felt off before anyone else did. In our relationship, that translated into being the steady one. While he chased excitement, I built stability. While he made promises, I made them real. We had been together for 4 years, long enough to blur the line between effort and expectation. I handled the small things that kept life running, appointments, finances, the invisible labor no one applauds. He used to call me dependable, like it was both a compliment and a limitation. I didn't realize then that he meant predictable, replaceable. When he started pulling away, it wasn't dramatic. It was quieter than that. Fewer questions about my day, more time on his phone, a new kind of distance that made me feel like a guest in my own life. I noticed everything, but I said nothing. Not because I was blind, because I was patient. And patience, I've learned, is often mistaken for weakness. By the time he met her, the better woman, as his friends casually described, I had already felt myself being edited out of his story. He thought I wouldn't notice the shift. He was wrong. It didn't happen all at once. That's what made it easy for him to deny, and harder for anyone else to see. He started correcting me in front of people, gently, almost kindly. "That's not exactly how it happened," he'd say with a soft smile, as if accuracy mattered more than respect. At dinners, his attention drifted just enough to be noticeable, eyes flicking to his phone, thumb moving in quiet, practiced motions under the table. Once I caught a name on his screen, not saved, just a number. He tilted the phone away without thinking, then looked back at me a second too late. "Work," he said, voice even. But his shoulders held a tension that didn't belong to honesty. There were pauses where warmth used to be, silences that stretched half a second longer than they should have. When I spoke, he listened, but only long enough to respond, not understand. The first time he mentioned her, it was casual. "She just gets things," he said, almost absent-mindedly, like he was describing a tool that worked better than expected. I nodded. I remember the way the room felt suddenly smaller, the air thinner, like something invisible had shifted. He didn't apologize. He didn't need to. By then, he already believed I'd stay. The moment didn't come with shouting or slammed doors. It arrived quietly, like most truths do, undeniable once seen. We were at a small gathering, nothing special. Soft music, low lighting, people speaking in half-laughs. He stood across the room next to her. Not too close, not far enough. Their conversation had a rhythm I recognized, the kind that doesn't need effort. Familiar, easy. At one point, she touched his arm. Light, deliberate. He didn't move away. Instead, he glanced at me, not with guilt, not even with hesitation. Just a quick measuring look, as if checking whether I'd react, whether I'd make it inconvenient. I held his gaze for a second, then looked away first. And in that small exchange, something settled inside me. Later that night, he came home late. I was already awake, sitting in the dim light of the living room. He paused when he saw me, key still in his hand. "You're up?" he asked. It wasn't concern, it was calculation. That was when I understood. Not just that he had chosen differently, but that he believed I would accept it. Adjust to it. Stay quiet. I smiled, small and steady. That was the last moment I belonged to him. I didn't confront him. Confrontation is loud, and loud things warn people to prepare. Instead, I paid attention. I had always managed the structure of our life. Our lease was in my name. Our savings routed through accounts I organized. Our shared expenses documented down to the smallest detail. Not because I was controlling, but because someone had to be responsible. He had never questioned it. That was his first mistake. Quietly, I separated what was mine from what he only thought was his. I moved my salary into a new account he didn't know existed. I reviewed every contract, Lease terms, cancellation clauses, notice periods. I spoke to a lawyer under the pretense of future planning, learning exactly where I stood and what I could do without creating noise. At home, nothing changed. I still cooked, still listened, still let him believe I hadn't noticed the distance, or her. But I started declining things, joint plans, shared commitments, anything that tied me further to him. Each small step looked insignificant on its own. Together, they built an exit he couldn't see forming. Revenge, I realized, isn't about destruction. It's about timing, and I was almost ready. The call from the hospital didn't rush me. It confirmed what I had already set in motion. While he spoke, voice unsteady, asking for help with insurance, contacts, anything that sounded like responsibility, I opened my laptop and finalized the last step. A notice I had scheduled days ago was now active. The lease termination clause executed cleanly. His name had never been on it. He had 30 days legally, less realistically. "I don't know what to do," he said, the words cracking in a way I had never heard before. I leaned back, listening to the steady beeping behind him. "You'll figure it out," I replied, calm, almost gentle. There was a pause. Not silence, realization. By the time he was discharged, the apartment was no longer ours. My accounts were separate. My number, soon to be. The systems I had built for us no longer included him. I didn't block him. I didn't need to. Consequences don't require announcements. They arrive on their own, quiet, precise, and impossible to ignore. And for the first time, he was the one left trying to catch up. The reactions came in fragments, carried through other people before they ever reached me. A mutual friend called first, careful with her words. "He's not doing great," she said, like it was news I was supposed to soften for. There was confusion in her voice, not judgment, because from the outside, it didn't look like a dramatic ending. No public fight, no scandal, just a quiet unraveling he hadn't expected. Others were less subtle. Someone mentioned how quickly he'd moved on, then how suddenly things seemed to collapse around him. The trip cut short, the hospital, the apartment situation. The details didn't need explanation. Patterns speak for themselves when you let them. He reached out twice more. Short messages, controlled. As if choosing the right tone might reopen. A door I had already removed. I didn't respond. What shifted most wasn't his situation, it was mine. The constant, low-grade tension I had carried for months was gone. In its place was something steadier, clearer. People care about endings like this because they recognize the feeling of being underestimated, of being quietly replaced and expected to accept it. But this wasn't about proving him wrong. It was about no longer needing to prove anything at all. In the weeks that followed, life didn't transform overnight. It settled. Mornings became quieter but not empty. I noticed small things again. The way sunlight moved across the floor. How coffee tasted when it wasn't rushed. How silence could exist without tension inside it. I wasn't waiting for messages that never came, or bracing for conversations that left me smaller. For the first time in a long while, my energy belonged entirely to me. I didn't follow his recovery. I didn't ask about her. Whatever story they continued to live no longer required my presence to make sense. That, more than anything, felt like closure. I started making decisions without considering how they would fit into someone else's plans. A new place, a different routine. Work that I had once postponed quietly moved to the center of my life. Not as a distraction, but as intention. What I learned wasn't loud or dramatic. It was simple. Being overlooked doesn't diminish your value. It reveals where you've been placing it. He thought losing me would be temporary. What he never understood was that I had already found my way, out long before he needed a way back. And this time, I didn't leave a door behind me.